Like, if he's such a savage, if he's such a monkey, how come the first two people that I've talked to had nothing but good stuff to say about him? If a lot of people are being racist, so they're going to go with that narrative that they like. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't get time. I'm not saying that Rampage Jackson couldn't be a better father. Because I seen another clip. And then you got Chief Keef playing in the background too. You know, that definitely doesn't help shit. My main thing though is like, why did nobody pull him off sooner? That was my main thing. You know, and why did this dude still get pinned after he got punched in the face that many times? That's what I found. Rampage Jackson has failed as a father is a title I've been seeing around on YouTube. And at first I wasn't going to touch on this topic with Raja Jackson hitting a wrestler 20-something times in the face. Because I'm like, you know, I usually talk about body game. It's not really my type of, you know, topic. But the more I thought about it, I said, no, this actually goes very well with what I usually talk about, how we live in a microwave society. People want a quick fix. People don't like to get down to the root of a problem. People like to hear a story and just go with it. They don't like to peel back the layers and really get into it. And it's been very obvious that people are like that, just looking at people react to this. But I actually talked to two guys that work out at Raj's gym. They know him personally, and they had nothing but good things to say about him. And one of the guys was like, you know, I think he had a lot of built up anger. You know, he lost his mom, and Rampage Jackson wasn't the best father. And my thing is, like, you don't know the whole situation. How are you going to talk about, you know, if he was a good father or not? You know, you don't know what was behind closed doors. But, you know, he was trying to say, like, Rampage isn't a good father. Really saying how Raja had it tough, so he probably had a lot of built-up anger. I think what a lot of people are passing over is that he had a concussion, you know, and a concussion can definitely affect your decision-making. And anytime I bring up the concussion, people are like, oh, you don't hold people accountable, you're playing victim. And it's like, no, that's a real thing, dog. And I think when it comes to concussions, they don't like to talk about it because you're kind of going at the sport. You're going at the sport of boxing, MMA, football, when you start to address the concussions. But concussions can definitely give you a short temper. You know, things that wouldn't bother you as much. If you have a really bad concussion, it might bother you. And we know he had a pretty bad concussion because he was vomiting, and he said he wanted to go live earlier in the day, but his head was just hurting too bad. So that's one of the things that people need to acknowledge. A concussion can definitely affect your decision making. But these two guys that work out at his gym, they had nothing but good things to say. They say, you know, sometimes sparring can get intense in there. He's one of the guys that never takes it too far. Both the guys had nothing but good things to say about him. But one of the guys, he was like, you know, I don't think Rampage Jackson was the best father. And I said, you know, you don't know the whole situation, you know, and sometimes you think you know, but you really don't. And then when you look at Rampage Jackson's story, like any of these fighters, they have tough lives. You know, a lot of people don't just go to fighting because it's fun and enjoyable. Like, no, a lot of those dudes have a lot of skeletons in the closet. Like, a lot of them had a very rough growing up, you know, and I believe Rampage Jackson grew up without his father, you know, and so he has that more old school mindset. And then growing up without your father, it tends to make you a certain type of way. You know, a lot of black fathers in America that 60s, 70s, 80s, they're not all lovey-dovey. You know, if you grew up without your father, you're not going to be all lovey-dovey. Even my dad, like, my dad's not like all lovey-dovey, affectionate type, you know. That's like the more old school type of way. And I've talked about it before, like, even my grandma in the South, I never heard her tell my dad, like, she loves him. I hardly ever see them hug or, you know, any type of affection at all. And it's just like, she grew up in hard times. That's just the way she is. She's not super affectionate towards her son because she grew up during the hard times. Like, that's just the way shit was. And I think people don't realize that, so they look at it and, oh, she's a bad mother, he's a bad father. It's like, no, he grew up in hard times. That shit made him a different type of way. So when he's like bullying his son, that's his way of showing love. But people can't understand that because they can't peel back the layers. They say, oh, he bullying his son, he got issues. It's like, no, he grew up without his father, right? He grew up fighting. He had a hard life, and he turns a lot of things into jokes. And maybe I'm a little biased. Like, I like Rampage Jackson. I think he is a great fighter. I think he has a very entertaining personality. And, you know, some people do get caught up in doing stuff for camera, doing stuff for views. So maybe that happened to him a little bit too, man. But I think we have to acknowledge that he is coming off a concussion. That is going to affect his decision making. You got to realize that Rampage Jackson had a tough upbringing. He probably isn't the best father. But hell, a lot of dudes want to be the best father if they grew up in his situation. Who showed him how to be a good father? You know, that's the type of stuff you got to think about, man. But I think a lot of people, they don't think at all. They just take a story. Oh, he's a savage. He's a monkey. Lock him up. I'm like, if he's such a savage, if he's such a monkey, how come the first two people that I've talked to had nothing but good stuff to say about him? If he's such a savage, if he's such a monkey, if, you know, but a lot of people are being racist, so they're going to go with that narrative that they like. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't get time. I'm not saying that Rampage Jackson couldn't be a better father. Because I seen another clip when his daughter was like, oh, you only call me when you're on stream and stuff like that. Like, I understand that. Maybe he's, you know, getting caught up into the hype. But, dog, sometimes you got to take a couple steps back and see where people came from. You know, because you're judging this person because you had a different upbringing. You had a different starting point. So you're looking at a Rampage Jackson. Oh, he's not truly affectionate. Oh, he bullies his son. And it's like, well, shit, he probably thinks he's doing a great job because his father wasn't there at all. You know, I even had a conversation with my dad before, like, certain things I wish he would do better. You know, and I think I had a good dad, but certain things I wish he would do better because a lot of time my dad thought, like, oh, him paying for something was, like, everything. You know, I think a lot of times he viewed, like, oh, if the man's paying, like, that's all that's to it. And I'm like, there's so much more to being a great father. But his father wasn't around like that. My grandpa wasn't around like that. So he thinks, like, that's what you have to realize. People have different starting points, dog. You know, but I'm not saying he shouldn't get time. I'm not trying to defend Roger Jackson. I'm just saying you have to look at everything in the situation. You know, so I think Roger Jackson, I think he's actually a good dude. I think he got caught up into the live chat. I think he kind of did have some built up anger because his dad bullies him. But I think a lot of times he probably had that type of anger, but he held it in. But that concussion could have messed him up too. And even when it comes to, now some people are going to be like, oh, you're reaching. But even when it comes to being a vegan, a lot of vegans deal with more mental health issues because they lack in certain nutrition if they're not supplementing. And that's why when I did the live, I forget the guy's name. I think his name was Brian. The first live I ever did. I asked him about him being vegan and stuff like that. And he was like, because I asked him if he takes supplements. Because at the time I was talking to a girl that was a vegan and she wasn't really taking supplements. And I'm like telling her, like, you need to take supplements. Like, that's probably why you don't feel good. And he told me, yeah, I take supplements. Don't you take supplements? He's like, it's the same thing. And I'm like, well, it's not really the same thing because if you're vegan, you're missing out on a lot of nutrition. Well, if you were eating meat, you wouldn't need as many supplements. So that's why I was trying to tell him, but I don't think he really realized it. But even being vegan, dog, like those people, if you're not taking supplements, they tend to deal with more mental health issues. So that plays a role too. But a lot of people don't want to peel back all the layers. They rather have no thinking to it. Oh, he's a monkey. He's an animal. That's the story we've been hearing. We see black people killing everybody. That's the story a lot of people want to go with, you know? So that's what a lot of people are going to stick to. But I like to acknowledge everything. I like to look at everything. Like I said, I'm not saying he doesn't deserve time. I'm not saying that Rampage Jackson isn't a shitty father. I'm just saying you got to look where people start and realize, like, a fighting lifestyle, that's a tough life, dog. You know, that's a tough life. So, I don't know. I try to understand people, dog. I don't try to be too quick to judge people and too quick to, like, shit on people for views and stuff like that. A lot of time when you understand where someone coming from, it's really hard to hate on them, you know. But I think Roger, he's a good kid, dog. And I wouldn't even say kid. He's 25 years old. You know, why are we calling him a kid? I just seen everybody else calling him a kid. But I don't think he deserves a life. I think he got a good heart. And like I said, I talked to two people that go to his gym. So it's like, why would these two kids that I talked to have nothing but good things to say if he's such a savage, if he's such a hothead and all this other stuff? They saying, no, this is out of character for him. You know, and I think a lot of people, they take certain things that Rampage Jackson says too seriously. Like I seen one thing where he said he had 2 Japanese kids and, you know, he saved up for school for them, and for his 2 black kids, he saved up bail money. Like some of that stuff, you got to kind of realize that Rampage Jackson, he jokes around a lot. So you don't know how serious he truly is, you know. Like I said, I think he probably does deserve time. You know, you punch the dude 20-something times in the face. But I think you got to look at all that stuff, dog. I think that was out of character for him. Like, I think if he wasn't coming off this concussion, who knows if he would have even hit him that many times, you know? Maybe he would have, maybe he wouldn't. I feel like it's really goofy how quickly people just pass up the concussion aspect of it. Like, concussions can affect your decision making, dog. I promise you. Like, look it up, dog. If you hear any of these experts on the brain talk about concussions, talk about CTE, talk about brain damage, it can affect your decision making, dog. Look at Antonio Brown. Look at Tank. A lot of fighters, now, and that's why I think a lot of people don't want to talk about it, because they're kind of attacking the sport. But a lot of these fighters have issues outside the ring. And a lot of people just like to go, oh, it's because they got a whole bunch of money. The money's going to the head, the fame going to the head. That might play a role. But also the concussions are probably playing a role. And then some people say, Cole, I got a concussion and I never did anything like that. Well, did you have a concussion where you were vomiting? And then you also have to realize, depending on what part of your brain was damaged, it's going to affect certain behaviors. So it's so complex. People don't realize how complex the brain is. I'm not saying if you get hit in your head, you're going to go off a whole bunch of people. But I'm saying, let's say you got a whole bunch of built up anger. This is the way I look at it. You have a whole bunch of built up anger, but usually you don't act on it. Usually you take out your anger hitting the gym. I done had built up anger before, and I go hit the gym. I let it out. Or going to boxing, whatever it may be. You let that anger out. So usually you release your anger in a good way. But you sometimes you build up that anger. It happens to a lot of guys. So let's say you're tired of your dad picking on you. You're tired of the stream talking shit to you. Your head's already hurting. So you done built up some anger past couple weeks, past couple months. Hell, you might have been building up this anger your whole life. There's some random dude hits you upside the head with a can, and some people say it's fake. Some people saying it's real. Who really knows? And you feel disrespected. And a lot of times, you see it all the time, dog. A lot of times when guys fight, they really don't even want to fight the other dude. They just got embarrassed, so now their ego is on the line. A lot of people say, oh, I wouldn't have cared. He's tripping. He's doing too much. Like, okay, until you're in that situation, you can't really speak on it. He definitely went too far. I'm not saying he didn't go too far. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve time. Because I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, you're playing the victim card. Oh, you don't want to hold people accountable. I'm not saying that. I just said, when we talk about a situation, let's get down to the root of it. Let's look at everything. Like, I don't understand why people get mad when we bring up concussions. Why are you getting mad about that? So he probably had a lot of built up anger. And the typical Roger Jackson, he could keep it in. But with the concussion, you have a shorter temper. And then you got Chief Keef playing in the background too. That definitely doesn't help shit. My main thing though is like, why did nobody pull him off sooner? That was my main thing. And why did this dude still get pinned after he got punched in the face that many times? That's what I found crazy. And I know some people gonna be like, oh, Cole, you can't be blaming the other wrestlers and stuff, but it's like, dog, if that's your team, that's the boys you put on a performance with, like, y'all should have each other's back more than that. There's no way he should have got 22 licks off. After about the third or fourth punch, this should have been someone jumping on him. Like, I'm surprised Roger Jackson got out there on both his legs. Like, that was like the craziest part to me. Because I feel like it would have been justified if they would have jumped him right there. I feel like that would have been justified. But I think there's definitely some mental health issues. Maybe it's concussion. Maybe it's otherwise. Maybe even him being a vegan played a role into that. Some guys will say, Cole, you're reaching. It's not that deep. But I promise you, a lot of times it is that deep. Just like the aspect of Rampage Jackson. A lot of people say, oh, he's a shitty father. But it's like, peel back some layers. Let's look into his history. He grew up without a father. He grew up fighting. He made a living off of fighting. A lot of those dudes have skeletons and they went through a lot of shit. So stuff like that, dog, your brain is very important. So that's why I'm like, at first I'm like, this doesn't really go with topic, but when I think about it, it does. Mind, body, soul is all connected. You got to take care of your brain, dog. And that's why I always talk about it. Like, even when it comes to body game, a lot of guys don't enjoy life, but you toting around a whole bunch of fat. You feel like shit every day because your health is shit. It's hard to be in a good mood when you feel like shit all the time. It's hard to make good decisions when you have an unhealthy brain. And even when it comes to your diet, the way you're eating, that affects your brain too, dog. Like, I remember one time I was on TikTok, And, I'm very much against antidepressants and stuff like that. I think some people, it's okay for it, but I think it's definitely overprescribed. A lot of people are taking antidepressants when they don't need to. They just need to live in more natural ways. And I remember I was talking to this one girl. She was talking about how she takes antidepressants. And I said, did you ever try exercising? Did you ever try changing your diet? And then she's like, are you stupid? I just told you I take antidepressants, and now you're asking me, did I ever try to change my diet? And I'm like, yeah. And she couldn't even comprehend, like, why I was asking her that question, because she's like, I have mental health issues, like I was born this way. But I'm like, well, if you ate a healthier diet, if you got out and exercised, if you got more sunlight, your brain would be healthier. So maybe you wouldn't have all these issues that you think are just genetic, that are just inherent. And I know some people are more predisposed to certain things, but she couldn't even understand that. She looking at me, she's saying, am I stupid? I'm like, are you stupid? You didn't try anything. The first thing you went to was a pill, a quick fix. And like I said, that's how a lot of people are. They don't think at all, dog. They're very surface level everything. Just like this situation, a lot of people, oh, he's a savage, he's a monkey, lock him up. But it's like, boy, he had a concussion. I mean, you had some stranger hit a can over your head. Even if it was fake, it was very disrespectful, doing it in front of a whole bunch of people. That was odd. So there's many levels to it. And then, like I said, people do things for the camera. If you got your chat constantly calling you a bitch, you got your dad calling you a bitch, I can't understand why that would piss you off too. So I think it's just a combination of things. But I think the Roger Jackson, I think he has a good heart, dog. And I think a lot of people are gonna not like that I said that, but it's like, dog, I talked to two people that train at his gym. One of the dudes like, yeah, I think he had a lot of built up anger, man, because he had a tough life, man. You lose your mom at a fairly young age, that's tough, dog. And then your dad, he shows you love, but he shows you love in a way where you can't really receive it. You don't really feel it. But I don't know. Y'all let me know what y'all thought about the whole situation in the comment section. I just wanted to bring some more depth to it. Like I said, I completely understand if they give him some jail time, but I definitely don't think he deserves life in jail. Life in prison, I think that'd be insane. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think it's just a messed up situation, and I think one, he shouldn't have even been there in the first place when you got a concussion. He should have been at home recovering. That's what he should have been doing. But I guess sometimes streaming, you're trying to make that money, you're trying to hit a certain quota. I understand that too, but it's just a bad situation, man. Hopefully he makes a full recovery. But what I've seen, they say he's doing pretty good. But yeah, that's my thing, man. You gotta look at everything, dog. Maybe Rampage Jackson should be a better father, but it's like, hell, most of us have never been in shoes like Rampage Jackson, dog. A lot of dudes that don't have a father, they grow up fighting, they don't become the best fathers. Now, some dudes, they do a complete 180. They learn from all the holes they had in their life, and they want to do the complete opposite. But that's not most people, dog. So I don't know, man. Y'all tell me what y'all think, man. That's all I got for y'all today. Make sure you like the video, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll catch y'all boys in the next one.